Welcome, everyone, to Mexican Crossing Lines with your host, Cindy Gomez-Schempp.
And Duke Gomez-Schempp.
You're listening to 88.1 FM KPPPLP Fargo Moorhead, where we are adding local color to your airwaves. And we are trying to add to the conversation around what is happening in our country in the middle of a pandemic that has lasted pretty much the entire 6 months of this year so far.
Exactly.
And now we add to it the riots of 2020, the protest marches, the riots that have taken place all across the country and around the world. For what? We think it's for Black Lives Matter. Is it for Black Lives Matter? I don't know. And the fact that we don't know enough about Black Lives Matter, who is in the leadership of this organization, what they fund, who works for them, what they do, what have they been doing since their inception, which, by the way, has not been very long. And with all of the protests happening right now, what are all of the millions of dollars that have been raised and have been sent to Black Lives Matter? What are those dollars funding? Who are those dollars funding? What organizations? What groups? Here's the thing, folks. In my experience, both as a reporter and as an organizer, I have a problem with organizations that are not transparent. I have a problem with them for many reasons, not the least of which is the fact that many times these organizations are fly-by-night, Johnny-come-latelys that show up and hijack the work of the real grassroots on the ground organizers, local organizers, trying to deal with their local problems, into which national organizations or seemingly national organizations like Black Lives Matter insert themselves into and hijack the narrative and the money and run. And we never find out what exactly happened. I've seen this before. It happened at Standing Rock. And there are ties to Black Lives Matter going back to Standing Rock and before. There's also a national network of organizers, nonprofits, executive directors connected to NGOs that have been following the work, have worked with the co-founders of Black Lives Matter, have helped to promote and help to raise funds for this organization, which people are now asking a lot of questions about. Duke and I know who those organizers, executive directors, and nonprofits are. And we've been questioning where the money goes when large national organizations for some cause, remember Raíces during the asylum-seeking caravan stage, raise millions and millions of dollars, almost overnight in some cases, and nobody's ever heard of them, and nobody knows who's behind them, and there's a series of shell-like corporation nonprofits, financial protectors that cover for who are the real people behind these organizations, like in the case of Black Lives Matter. And I have a problem with that. And so do all of the on-the-ground local Black organizers that are fighting for racial justice, that are fighting for justice in the justice system as well as in the system of policing. They don't appreciate having to do all the work and having Black Lives Matter, whoever or whatever they are, take all the credit. So today we are going to go into this big question mark about who Black Lives Matters is and who is funding them and who is behind them. And spoiler alert, there is a lot of information that we don't know. There's a lot of arguments about what we know. And I know that a lot of you have been sending me videos, have been sending me articles, have been sending me theories, have been sending me fact check articles telling me that the articles that were posted by some saying that Black Lives Matter is funded by Soros or is funded by this or the money goes to that. You know, these fact check articles are saying, you can't really say that. We don't have enough evidence to say that. And guess what? To some degree, all of you are right. All of those things are right, and I'm going to tell you why in a second. But first, I want to thank all of our followers, all of our listeners. I want to invite you to go to our social media pages on YouTube, on Twitter, on Facebook, and to go to our website at kpppfm.com. Look at all of the organizations that we have done a deeper dive into. Me and my partner, Duke Gomez-Schempp, who is an executive director of nonprofit work and has worked on foundations that are funders of nonprofit work for nearly 3 decades. Is that a fair assessment?
Yep.
And I want to thank all of you tonight for taking the time to educate yourselves. I mean, we're still going through a pandemic. Most of you are probably stuck at home. This is a good time to really learn what we're backing, what we're funding, what we are promoting with our social media posts, with our dollars. We deserve to know, and Black and brown people fighting for justice deserve to have you care enough when you're donating to give the money to the people that are actually doing the work, that are actually fighting for the thing that you came to donate for, that you claim to care about. So check out our deeper dives that we've done on the founders of the Women's March, on the Sunrise Movement, on Standing Rock organizations from the Water Protector legal collectives, and many other groups in between, like the Border Support Network. And of course, you can make a tax-deductible donation. You can make a super chat donation, as Miss Red Badger has done just today, right now, on our YouTube channel. There's a lot of ways you can support local independent news, and we need you to do that.
That's for sure. You know, really appreciate the support. It's tough to be able to take your hard-earned money and donate it at this time, because a lot of people not making any money, you know, so it's like, really appreciate when people do that, because we're still working. You know, we didn't stop working. You can get a hold of us by calling a call-in line. Actually, just leave a message on the call-in line. 701-566-0917. Again, that number is 701-566-0917. You can leave a message up to 3 minutes. We'll try to get back to you. If we can do email, you send Cindy an email. It's cindy@kpppfm.com, or me, Duke, at kpppfm.com. You can follow us on Facebook at 88.1 Fargo Moorhead, Mexi-Can, and the People's Press Project. Over on YouTube, we're at Duke1517. The channel I started a long time ago, so we've kept it. You know, it was tough to get all those subscribers, so we could actually get to the point to monetize and do super chats. And you can join us on all of our shows. Are going to be done on Facebook and YouTube, multi-streaming. You can go to kpppfm.com, have a look around. I'm a little bit behind with some of our shows. I'm starting to put like 6 shows on a page, you know, and between dates in April and May. I'm up to May. I still have all of May to put up. But you can look back at our other shows, and you can see all of them on Facebook and YouTube. YouTube has all the shows. And when you're on kpppfm.com, you can go over and fill out a little web form and make a tax-deductible contribution to the organization. You'll get a return email with that information that you can use as a tax receipt. And we appreciate the support, and we appreciate you being here tonight.
We really do. It's so frustrating to see people donating to these causes that don't actually address what people want. As an organizer and as a reporter, I've been following what's going on with the shootings of unarmed Black individuals in this country. I've seen the protests going all the way to, Trayvon Martin, the Brown family, the protests in Ferguson and in the South, in Minneapolis. We've been following what people are complaining about, what communities are asking for. And it is an important discussion to have about ending chokeholds. I mean, in the last 4 weeks since the death of George Floyd, many towns and municipalities have taken it upon themselves to end practices like chokeholds, to set new policies about accountability for officers, to provide training for police officers. All sorts of different reforms have taken place since the protests began because the police departments and the communities that they serve have an interest in solving this problem. And maybe we needed to have this conversation sooner, but we're having it now. And the important thing is to be goal-oriented, to be task-oriented, and then to try to actually meet those goals. I would like to ask those of you who are listening to me, what goal has Black Lives Matter stated? What is their ask? What is their call to action, right? What are they telling you as a person, other than fundraising, other than sending them your dollars? What are they asking for? Do we know for sure? Because for as many times as I've heard people say that the new goal right now, or the main goal, is to abolish the police, I've also heard that it's actually to defund the police. And then I've heard that defunding police doesn't mean what you think it means, while no one really tells you what it does mean. So it's very unclear to me what their current plan of action is and what it has been in the past. Can you articulate any particular campaign, any particular action that you know that Black Lives Matter as a national organization has been in the leadership of?
Not really. They've been at things. They've had rallies and marches.
People in their names,
You know,
people using the hashtag and the name Black Lives Matter, which is an ideology,
mhm.
I believe that Black Lives Matter, right? Not the organization.
That's right.
Not the national organization. So let's look at what we can find out. First of all, I want to invite you to go to this article on Black Lives Matter funding. This was from a local ABC 6 News affiliate, and they said, as Black Lives Matter's donations surge all through America, some people want to know, where does the money go? And in this article, which I'm sharing the link with everyone to, you can also just look it up by typing in, as Black Lives Matter's donations surge, some want to know where the money goes, and you'll find the article. And it has a lot of different links to other research that has been done by the New York Times and by people on social media talking about past criticisms of the organization, which include the fact that the Black Lives Matter donation link sends you to an ActBlue site, which many people on the right, many conservatives, have implied or directly said means that the money that is being collected by Black Lives Matter is actually going to the DNC, and for which Black Lives Matter has put out a series of denials. So what's the truth here? Is the money that's going to Black Lives Matter actually going to Black Lives Matter? And if not, where does it go? Well, first of all, I wanted to share with you an excerpt from this about the global organization, which is Black Lives Matter. And it says that the leaders have dismissed conspiracy theories as political disinformation intended to undermine their mission, stressing that any donations to the DNC would have to be publicly reported to the FEC, the Federal Election Commission. However, they have not released particularly detailed information about where donations are going. Quote, right now, our programs are focused on civic engagement, expansion of chapters, arts and culture, organizing and digital advocacy resources and tools, Scales explained during a Reddit Ask Me Anything session this week. Okay, now, Duke, look at that list. Expansion of chapters, civic engagement, arts and culture, organizing and digital advocacy. Out of those things, I don't see a specific group, chapter, or campaign that they're directly linking themselves to.
No, it's all very nebulous. Just some words, some line items on budget, and how detailed do they need to get? You can it's just split up and spend on these different things.
None of those things imply any actual hands-on work with any humans. That they don't actually say that. Look at the wording. And this was done in response to people questioning the donations allocations. The Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation, which is really the organization that is taking the funds in for Black Lives Matter, did not respond to any requests for information. Activists on the left, which have raised doubts as well as being frustrated by the lack of specifics of how funds are distributed and how local chapters can obtain resources, have faced similar concerns in the past from the left and the right about its financial structure and spending priorities. Amid this influx of new funds, the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation announced last week that it is creating a $6.5 million fund to support grassroots organizing work by affiliate groups starting July 1st. They are taking applications for grants, multi-year grants, for up to $500,000.
Whoa.
Now, let me just tell you how insignificant that statement is. As a juxtaposition, an organization with the name Black Lives Matter, which has no affiliation to the global network that I just told you collects the money for Black Lives Matter, that foundation, they inadvertently, because people sent them the money thinking they were the national Black Lives Matter, inadvertently raised over $4 million for that one organization over the last 4 weeks. And by the way, that organization has one employee, one person to the whole organization, and they don't have to tell anybody how they're spending those $4 million.
Wow.
So for the Black Lives Matter national organization to say, oh, now that people are asking questions about all of the tens of millions of dollars we raised, we're going to set aside 6.5 to give out to groups, to chapters. At this stage, this is an organization that started in 2015 or 2016, if I am not mistaken. So it's been around for 4 years, and this is the first that it's actually going to give money to all of these local chapters. questionable. It's really the 6.5 million. What I'm saying to you is it's a drop in the bucket in comparison to the money that they're taking in and that they could be giving to the actual organizations doing the work on the ground. But let's take a look at one of the former people that they were promoting in Black leadership, a woman by the name of Ashley Yates, who has a Twitter account called Brown Blaze. And she posted this on her Twitter account a while ago. In fact, she has been giving them hell since they tossed her and other Black leaders aside once they had used them and abused them. She had quite a Twitter following, and so did another woman, I believe her name is Rian, that were tossed aside by Black Lives Matter. And she posted this. She said, again, this is very recent that she posted, again, please stop giving money to Black Lives Matter Network. By their own admission, they have no staff and no infrastructure. In 6 years, they have not produced a single community program, sponsored a single piece of legislation, or financially supported a single chapter. There is someone who used to be promoted by Black Lives Matter telling you that she knows they don't have, in the 6 years they've been around, they haven't given a single dime to Black Lives Matter chapters nationally, sponsored a single piece of legislation or a single community program. And then she posted this where she says, here's a letter that they sent out, Black Lives Matter National Network sent out to all of its chapters, the family, the BLM family, about what they're doing and what they're doing right now with their money as of August 20, 2018. She says, look, while they're focusing on local organizing, sounds cute, but there's a lot of unanswered questions about national staff and where all of the money went. Also, notice in their letter how their main objective is aggressive fundraising. And she says, so that they can blow that on money, that money on vacations. Let's look at this letter, the Dear Black Lives Family letter that is attached to this post. And as you can see in this letter, they do talk about, as a response to this need, in the current staff body of the global network will undergo a strategic restructuring. This is in 2018, ladies and gentlemen. They've been around by this point for quite a while, and then they're being questioned about, what's going on with the chapters. How are the chapters being supported by the national organization? What is this? What's their political leanings? All of these things have been unanswered. So guess what? We're going to restructure. So beginning September 3rd of 2018, the letter continues, most of the current staff will be transitioning back to the leadership roles within their chapters to better be placed to help facilitate long-term sustainability. So they're getting rid of their national leadership. Doesn't this sound bizarre to you, dude?
Yeah, it does.
And the reasoning behind it is because they're going to help facilitate long-term sustainability by getting rid of their national leadership? What? You know what they're doing here? They're dismantling their national leadership. And they're doing it to avoid people looking at how much money they're paying those people and those handful of people and where this money is truly going. And they talk about the fact that in this transitioning, there will be new openings for opportunity, whatever that means, and that they're ready for this because they want to reinvest in their chapters. And this $6.5 million I showed you is their first big push to do just that, to reinvest in their chapters 6 years in. So let's find out, what have they really been doing with this money? Black Lives Matters restructuring. They talk about, here's the Breaking with Black Lives Matter post. In this post, in this article, I'm going to share with you from the chapter in Cincinnati. These are different chapters, and there's more than one across the country that decided they're going to change their names. We're not going to call ourselves Black Lives Matter. Okay, folks, for those of the people out there that are banging you over the head when you question Black Lives Matter and calling you a racist and saying, you just don't want to, you can't tell black people how to protest. You shouldn't tell people what to do and how to raise money or how to defend black people. Let me tell you what you need to tell them. The people I am referencing today are all black people that worked with Black Lives Matter National Group, National Network Foundation. And what those people found was that Black Lives Matter is a sham, a scam, we don't know what it is because they're hiding it so well under all these different shells so you can never get to the bottom of it. And not only that, they are harming the fight for black justice. They're hurting the very organizations on the ground, grassroots organizers that are working for black lives, justice, and police reform. And this is coming from the Black Lives Matter organizations that broke with Black Lives Matter. This is just one of them. Let me reiterate, this is just one. There are many, but this is just one of them. And this is what they said. So they talk about the fact that in the beginning, when everyone was using the Black Lives Matter hashtag, they thought, well, we're a black-led group of people here in Cincinnati, Ohio, that is fighting for this. So we agree with the fact that Black Lives Matter, and we agree that people need to stand up and voice their opinion and fight and protest to get some kind of reform in the justice system, which is why they started using Black Lives Matter. And they named themselves Black Lives Matter Cincinnati because they're in Cincinnati. However, after years of a whole bunch of getting jacked around by the national group, they decided to formally break ties with Black Lives Matter. So they didn't feel the need to just quietly leave Black Lives Matter National Foundation because they didn't have their questions answered, because they couldn't figure out or pinpoint where the funding was going, and it didn't really matter to them because they still believed in the work of the national organization, and they didn't want to vilify them or demean them or anyway. No. This organization and others like it, other chapters around the country, were up to here. They had it. They were done carrying water and carrying the name of this organization that actually hurts black liberation movements. Listen to what they said. Internally, we had agreed for some time that it was our duty to represent a different pole of attraction to the strategy and the perspectives of Black Lives Matter in Cincinnati and nationally. We debated, however, how and when to formally break with the name because we, Black Lives Matter Cincinnati, have done real work under that name and did not want to surrender it to those that we feel cannot and have no interest in building a revolutionary movement for black liberation. So they felt like, you know what, the national organization does not deserve this name. They don't deserve to call themselves Black Lives Matter. We deserve to call ourselves Black Lives Matter. They do not. But, they go on, we can no longer use or identify with the name Black Lives Matter, a rally cry that still has meaning even if perverted by those pushing it as a brand. The depth and the scope of betrayal, of struggles against police brutality, and the families fighting for their loved ones is too great. The continuous shift toward electoral and liberal Democratic Party politics, did you catch that? And away from revolutionaries' ideas is too great. And the consequences for Black, brown, and poor people are too great. The possibilities to build a truly independent movement on a national scale for Black liberations are too ripe. Black Lives Matter did not create or build this new grassroots movement against police brutality and racism. They capitalized off of a nameless groundswell of resistance sweeping the nation, branded it as their own, and profited from the deaths of Black men and women around the country without seriously engaging as a national formation in getting justice for fighting families. All the while, raking in hundreds of thousands of dollars from high-end speaking engagements and donations from foundations that support the Black struggle or want to co-opt it. And they have gained access to high-profile associations, including invitations to the White House and celebrity events, have been on magazine covers, are on the way to profiting as authors and subjects of books, and have accepted numerous awards and accolades as so-called founders of the movement, while families struggle unassisted to keep fighting for justice. So many people on the ground have shared similar experiences when the reporters leave and the bright lights are gone. So are Black Lives Matter. There it is, folks. There it is, folks. The reality is that Black Lives Matter hasn't built or created anything. What they have is capitalized off of a movement, a national movement, by Black and white people, by people of all colors, for justice. And they named it for themselves, and they're raising money off of it for themselves. Your thoughts, Stu?
Oh, it reminds me of Standing Rock, because it was just this movement and then all the so-called leadership at Standing Rock that self-appointed themselves. I guess I knew of the existence of Black Lives Matter, but I never really followed and tried to figure out who all the people were and how they were running the organization, because it was more conceptual. But this is huge, and especially now, it's being exposed now, I think is really important.
I also think that people of color deserve to know when they're being led around by the nose. People of color deserve to know when they're being used. I'm going to show you. By the way, I want to thank Miss Red Badger for her donation and comment. She says, all of us matter. And all of our input, we are all stakeholders of what happens in American justice. All of us are stakeholders. All of us are going to be affected if our police departments are defunded across the country. And let me tell you something. While the Black Lives Matter movement, their national organization, whatever they are, because you're going to see in just a moment, it's very hard to pin down what they are. Although they are moving people to chant, all cops are bad. That's not what they say. They say something worse, but you know what I mean. Which is originally a skinhead chant. I'm just sharing the secrets of the history here for you to know. When you hear people sign up and donate to these groups and these organizations, it makes the people believe they're supporting Black lives, actual Black people in their community, that they're helping people of color, African Americans who need their financial support. And that is not the case. And they believe that their dollars are going toward a cause, right? What's that cause? The cause for justice for Black lives, right? Mm-hmm. Increasingly, what the money is going to is politics. That's what it's really going to, folks. There's no two ways about it. In an article in which, in the same article in which they talk about how the money is used, the Cincinnati Black Lives Matter chapter that changed its name, and others in this article link why Black Lives Matter Cincinnati changed its name, talk about a lot of the things that really bothered them, especially the Wakanda-ing, as they called it, of the Black vote. And in this section where they talk about the Wakanda-ing of the Black vote, they say that the Black vote is basically the most important thing to them out of all of this. After having shed the husk in anti-police brutality action, Black Lives Matter has been on a gradual course to gear its activities toward electoral politics and reformist campaigns. The Heart of Black Movement for Black Lives platform, incidentally not informed by a single chapter or its organization, but instead drafted by nonprofit organizations, is to focus on pushing various legislation. Little is said about action and protest. The power is removed from the people and placed into the ballot. This suits many activists just fine. More recently, they've launched the so-called Electoral Justice Project, which uses radical-sounding jargon to convince Black people of their white allies to put all their energies into focusing on policy change. The reality will prove this initiative to be nothing more than a Black pressure group aimed at nudging the Democratic Party. This tired and failed strategy has led social movements to their graves. I agree. This is infuriating for Black and brown activists, for Indigenous activists, to see that your movement is being hijacked. And this Electoral Justice Project, on their website, they basically state, quote, "The Movement for Black Lives is launching an Electoral Justice League, an intensive cohort and coaching process that will resource 12 Black organizers for the 2018-2019 election cycle to gain progressive candidates and advocacy wins in their communities." So basically, the Cincinnati Black Lives Matter chapter concluded they will pay 12 organizers to campaign with local Democrats that say something Black friendly, but put no full-time resources into getting justice for families, or using those funds to help pay for court fees or trauma relief, or to push forward the growing organization of mothers fighting cop brutality. One only has to step back and look at their track record to recognize that they are quite literally part of the problem that we truly face to get free. And those are the words of Black Lives Matter Cincinnati, formerly Black Lives Matter Cincinnati. They are now called Mass Action for Black Liberation. And you can find them on their website, on Facebook, if you wish to check them out. These are real groups that have been done wrong. So where is all of this attributing to democratic causes and democratic leadership funding ideas coming from? Well, if you go to the Black Lives Matter website, you will find that there's a donate button, which I have circled here all the way to the right. And if you click on that button, and you can do this yourselves, I'll share the link. It's just blacklivesmatter.com. It will take you to the secure ActBlue site. You can see right there in the URL, if you click on the donation button, it takes you to Secure ActBlue. Now, many of you sent me a video in which a woman did just this for herself to check it out. And if you look on this page at number 2, ActBlue number 2, it says where the charities are registered and how you can get their latest financial report. You can either call the number there, or you can email them, or you can call any of the state divisions of, consumer services to get the information. Well, I called that phone number, and you can't talk to a human being. If you are one of the people that funds them or is a campaign partner, you can leave a message for them. But if you seek information like they tell you to call that number for, you can't get it. They tell you right at the beginning of the message that the best way to get a hold of them is actually to email them, which I did. And if I get a response, I'll let you know what they said. I did ask them for their latest financials from 2019 and 2020. And it's a good thing that I did, because if you try to find out more about ActBlue, it's very hard. The video you guys sent me, or some of you sent me, takes you to opensecrets.org, which allows you to look up the financials for ActBlue, which you can see I did a search on. And once I finished that search, this is what I got. It showed me, this is a summary, okay? This is just the summary data. And as you can see, it shows you their financials starting in 2006 and then going into 2020, where, according to this, they have 1.5 million approximately in expenditures and receipts. And you can see that on the data summary below, which shows you that they had $1,479,000 or so dollars in receipts, and they spent about all of it, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then if you look at the bottom of this, the next one, that says that their expenditures, there's two different things here. I just showed you the summary. There's also an expenditures section. And if you go to the contribution data here, it shows you that they have a treasurer named Erin Hill, and she has an FEC committee ID, and you can look up those documents at the link there, and it says right there, okay, that contributions for this PAC to federal candidates, which people have attributed in many articles that they are doing, that they're using their contributions for federal candidates, they say here that that contribution is zero. Now, how can that be? How can it be? Because, there's a caveat there at the bottom, a footnote that tells you that based on the data released by the FEC on June 16, 2020, except for independent expenditures and communication cost contributions to federal candidates and contributions from individual donor data, which were released to the FEC on June 1st of 2020. So they are accurately, according to this, representing that they give no money to any federal candidates. How can that be true? How can that and the other accusations or allegations about the money from ActBlue going to national candidates be true? Well, take a look at the actual FEC filings. I didn't understand what the heck was going on, but here's what I can tell you about these filings. You'll note there that what I showed you on the screen is 2020 and 2019. I actually didn't want to screen capture more of it. There are other years. I had to go back, I think, to 2014 or 2015 to actually find a year-end report that was visible. In the ones that you see on the screen now, I was able to look at the miscellaneous reports to the FEC that took place in February and May. But the February, March, April, and May reports are not visible. They're not available. Neither are they available in 2019. So most of the reports that you see on the screen, when you click on the blue link, it displays nothing. There is nothing to see. You can't see anything. What was I able to see? Take a look at some of the things I was allowed to see. Here is one of the first forms from 2020 to the FEC, Form 99, it's called. And it basically says, and I don't know, maybe this is a clue to why they don't have any federal dollars going to federal candidates. But it says here, in the name of the ActBlue committee, the treasurer filed this thing saying that, this form saying, we are writing to clarify the official record concerning our status as not a non-qualified committee. ActBlue has never made a direct contribution to a federal candidate, nor do we intend to do so in the future. Notice the language. They've never made a direct contribution. As a conduit, what's a conduit, Duke?
It's a little tube that things go through.
It's a little tube. It's a channel to send things through. As a conduit, all contributions that we forward to federal candidates are earmarked by the original contributors. So they're basically money handlers, right?
Yep, pretty much.
We are money handlers. Therefore, we do not meet the FEC's definition of a multi-candidate committee, so we don't have to actually tell you how much money goes to these federal candidates because we never gave them that money. We just handle the money. We pass the money. The original contributor gives us the money, and then we give it to whoever they wanted us to give it to, but we didn't give them the money. It wasn't our money to give. Okay, here's another filing form that I was able to look at. And this is a contribution correction form, basically telling people that they inadvertently put down that these contributions were attributed to an individual they were not from. But who did they go to? The recipient, in one case, was the collective PAC. In another case, it was Kamala Harris for the people. Kamala Harris for the people. And also some other person named Nick Colvin for Congress. So these are for candidates. I looked at as many of the other filings as I could, folks, and there were a number of different recipients, which included national candidates for Congress and for the presidency, including Warren, Ilhan Omar, and others. So how are we supposed to really understand how ActBlue takes the money and what it does with the money when they hide where the money is so well and you can't even see all of their filings? I don't know how someone is acting transparently when you can't even look at the filings.
Exactly. And the thing is, I don't know that much about the federal election committee and the actual paperwork to become a political action, committee or some of the other organizations. But I know they spent years trying to make sure these PACs had accountability and visibility, but they kept on creating these avenues for people to hide money. And that's in the elections. That's one of the biggest things is that there's so much money spent on elections that there's regulation of the money, but there's many loopholes. And I just don't know the arm that actually would investigate and go after these people to see any wrongdoing. I'm not sure how they're staffed. I'm not sure how much power they have. I'm not sure how prevalent it is that they're actually holding people accountable. But at its surface, if I'm giving money to some group that I think it's for people organizing their community and it's going to Kamala Harris as a campaign contribution, there's something wrong.
There's a lot more. let me share with you this article, also written by a black woman in the Medium, which took a really close look at Black Lives Matter and tried to do a deep dive. And since this black woman has already done all the work, there's no need for me to recreate the wheel. So I want to share to you this article titled Hijacked: Who is Really Leading the Black Lives Matter Movement by Marley Kay. Marley Kay isn't just some Joe Schmo. Here's the background of the writer. The background of this writer is multifaceted. She is not only a professional grant writer, fundraiser, and trainer in her real life, she's also studied various social, community, and economic problems all across the country and in certain parts of the world. She stays on top of trends. She, as a fundraiser, has learned the art of the ask, how to write and review grant proposals, get funded, and how to locate data to plead her case for financial support. She's learned the importance of good governance, transparency, accountability, and most important, she learned how to locate, analyze, and interpret data in order to make compelling arguments while delivering the truth, or lack of organizations and groups, and how to follow the money. Being a fundraiser has taught her where to go to get monies of all types for all causes. And in her review of charities, she plans, every time she plans to donate to someone, she does this to ensure that the money goes to someone that is legitimate. Mm-hmm. She has 17 plus years of fundraising experience, and this is what she found. Now, I say all of this because she's making an allegation here that the Black Lives Matter movement is a sham, and she has things to back it up with, and she says they have also been hijacked. She explains, as an organizer, as a fundraiser, as a somebody that knows how to request funds and knows how to analyze information in databases, she says that when you are investing in an organization, you must fund it. You can do all of the rallies and protests and all of that stuff and go on social media and show your passion. And you can even get people to riot, which she said she strongly disagrees with. But if you don't put your dollars where your mouth is and legally register a vehicle, in this case, a nonprofit organization, a charity, a movement, in order to gain respect, earn trust, raise money, and have transparency, I would add to that list, then everything you're doing is worthless. And it's also ripe to be hijacked. Not investing financially in your own movement, not making yourselves legal on paper, makes you suspect right away. And let me tell you, spoiler alert, before I go break down what she found, there are so many shells behind this company, organization, whatever you want to call it, that's not even Black Lives. It's not even led by Black Lives. It's not even titled Black Lives Matter, okay? That it gives a lot of pause. It should give a lot of pause to any donor. You need to think before you take out your wallet and send your money. I know. You saw a black man have his life extinguished right in front of your eyes. You've watched it again happen just this week. You've seen it over and over again. It's traumatizing. Most of us in any crisis like that want to be able to close our eyes at the end of the day and hope for a better tomorrow. Most of us want to do the right thing, want to contribute to our community, to humanity in a positive way to help make a change. And many times we haphazardly take out our dollars and donate them somewhere we think might help. Black Lives Matter has a nice ring to it, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. It sounds like they might actually be helping black people. But you don't know. And you can't know. That's the problem. Duke, knowing that there's no Black Lives Matter, I just told you that. I'm going to show it to you in a second here. But you can't find who the actual people are behind this organization or what they've spent their money on. The fact that someone doesn't want to even put the Black Lives Matter brand, name, whatever, under its own 501c3. What does that tell you when someone does not want to become their own thing, invest in their own name?
They don't want direct accountability. They want to be slippery. They want to have no scrutiny. They want to be able to pretty much make decisions without any oversight. That's the sort of things I think of when a group acts that way. There's a way that groups can be a fiscal agent, have a nonprofit work with them and basically funnel their money to them, but they're responsible for the money. If the group is screwing up and not doing things right, the one who has oversight, that has the money that's putting it through a conduit to them, are the ones that are responsible for it. But it's a slippery slope of having no accountability and money that just goes into the abyss.
Exactly right. So see, this is why when anybody says, oh, that money is being used through that conduit to send to this political candidate or that political candidate, fact checkers on the left go, nope, you can't prove it. And you know what? They're right, because they hide under so many layers of BS. You can't prove it. It's almost impossible to go back to the beginning thread, who the original founders, formers, framers, organization, nonprofit, or anybody that is taking responsibility for the money and the redistribution of that money. So yeah, it's possible for people on the left to tell you that there's absolutely no positive, clear A to B way to point at a candidate and say, oh, they got money from Black Lives Matter funding or ActBlue. And it's true, because they've hit it very, very well. So let's see how they did this. In this article, again, written by a black woman that investigates, she's got experience, okay? These are all coming from black people. Take a look at what she said. She says, first of all, she doesn't want to give her money to some fraud, right? But also, she doesn't want to give her money to some foreign agent like Russians or Australians or aliens or people who plan to lead her around and around in a circle while they swindle her out of her money and her capital. And she asks, who is leading Black Lives Matter? Who really is leading Black Lives Matter? What is really going on behind this organization? She said that with all of the international hacking that is now being disclosed, that is happening around the world, hackers are now preying on America's racial divisions. International hackers, and black people are a hot commodity. She's also concerned that the first movement was started because of police brutality against who? Black men and women. But primarily black men, okay? Can we all agree with that? It started with Trayvon Martin.
Yeah.
It started with black men. But if you look at the What We Believe page for the Black Lives Matter website, black men are not even mentioned. They are not even a blip on the radar on their What We Believe. That's your mission. That's your vision. How many on the local level, on the national level, black men killed by police have led this fight for justice? Almost in every case. We have some women, but the majority of them have been black males. So why are there no black men on the website? Look for yourselves. These are the guiding principles of the organization Black Lives Matter. They don't address any safety or principles that have to do with boys or men, and it's very, very odd. There's diversity, restorative justice, globalism, queer affirmation, unapologetically black. That's the first time anything black is listed there.
Yep.
First is diversity, restorative justice, globalism, and queer affirmation. before you even talk about the Black diaspora? And then you have collective value, and then you have empathy, and then you have loving engagement, and then you have transgender affirming, and finally you get to Black villages, Black women, and Black families. I suppose Black men are Black boys are part of families, but why can't you say Black men?
Yep.
It's a little emasculating, don't you think?
Definitely. Wow.
And this is coming from a Black woman, fundraiser for Black causes. That is what she is noticing. There's no mention of Black men. So what is really behind this? Because we know it isn't really Black. It's not police reform. They want to abolish the police. They don't care to reform anything. And it's apparently not Black men either. Who's really behind it? Well, it turns out it's a group called Praxis Project. That's who's really behind Black Lives Matter. According to their tax returns, the organization, the name of the organization in the Foundation Center's database under Black Lives Matter on the tax return indicates the name of the organization is really Praxis Project, based out of D.C. It doesn't appear to be connected in any way with Black Lives Matter and the Praxis Project mission. When you look at the mission and when you compare it to the global network mission, there is no connection, apparent connection, between the mission of any of these three groups. If you look, let's go to the Praxis Project mission page. This is from their own website. Do you see Black men or Black lives mentioned specifically here at all? Who are we? The Praxis Project is a national nonprofit organization that works in partnership with national, regional, state, and local partnerships to achieve health equity and justice for all communities. Our mission is to build healthy communities. Once again, health initiatives. Transform relationships and structures that affect lives and communities. Praxis supports policy advocacy, local organizing as part of a comprehensive strategy. I see no Black men, Black boys, Black women, Black families, Black anything. Nothing related to Black Lives Matter. And by the way, guess what? There's no information available for the Black Lives Matter global network either. So this woman who has over 17 years of experience, if you look at what she found, she said, there isn't any information on the organization's board of directors for the Black Lives Matter charity, if there even is one in Oakland, California, or whether there is a charity in place at all. If the organization is a public charity or a private foundation, then organizational governance information should be available for public inspection. But it's unclear how this organization is governed, whether they have employees or volunteers, or when or if they meet to strategize, mobilize, build capacity, train, and or fundraise. Let's stop there for a second. I want your commentary as an organizer with over 20 years of experience. What should be available publicly to people to know how the organization is run, how it fundraises, whether it's on the up and up? What should you be able to find?
Well, to tell you the truth, not a lot. The only thing you have to make publicly available to anyone when they demand it from you is a nonprofit, a 501c3, under the section that most nonprofits are, is your tax return, that 990.
Yeah.
And unless you raise more than $50,000, you don't even have to have a detailed one. So pretty much there's...
Oh, but they've raised millions.
Yes, so they have a 990. They're supposed to have one. And it turns out that they're actually not the organization. They're having money funneled through them, to them, in them,
around them.
It's like, and some others, this Praxis group, I haven't actually looked at their 990 to see how they disperse their money. And even there, it's not as detailed as that individual tax reform would be. Because under the nonprofit laws, they're pretty lax. They're pretty lax for the organizations. So that's one reason they can get away with this. But when you mix in politics and you start doing the political organizing, that changes everything. You can no longer take in money as a 501c3 if you're going to influence legislation or deal with candidates. So there's a whole bunch of other regulations and types of organizations that you can form to do that sort of work. So I see a combination of those things going on with this too. There is like another 27G or something like that. There's a 1027 organization. There's different ways that people can do political fundraising and not even have the 501c3s, and then have a leadership group and accountability things with the the election commission. But again, there it's mixing different organizational stuff, and from Black Lives Matter to be the ones that are actually funneling money into political candidates. People don't do that. People didn't know that.
No. And for those of you who are just tuning in to this program, you're listening to 88.1 FM KPPP LP Fargo Moorhead, where we are adding local color to your airwaves. And I thank you for listening to the detailed research that we have done on what Black Lives Matter leadership is and isn't. There are more questions. There are more dead ends. Yeah. There are more secrets. There are more shell companies and groups than there are answers about Black Lives Matter and their funding and their leadership. And there's a reason for that. You are not meant to find out. You are not meant to know. And even seasoned, trained people that work in funding and the nonprofit world cannot figure out who or what is in the leadership of this organization. Let's look at the no information on Black Lives Matter's global network one more time, because in her research, this author also did a brief business search on Black Lives Matter global network, the one with the website online and the one that has the faces of the ladies with the media calls on all the time to be representatives on TV. There is no... That's Patrice Cullors and Audrey DeVornay or something like that. I can't remember those two women. There are no organizations that she found with this name, Black Lives Matter Global Network, registered in the state of California. And the organizations that did have similar names don't list either of the founding members of the Black Lives Matter Global Network on their websites. And she also checked Charity Navigator, GuideStar to see if they had any information about the particulars of the Black Lives Matter organization, and Charity Watch, the watchdog group. None of them had any information about the global network, which is different, right?
Yep.
Than the Black Lives Matter, which is really Praxis Project, which is we don't know what. And they have... Finally, there is also the current. So the story gets even stranger, okay? As far as Black Lives Matter's global network goes, this author attempted to make a donation through their website, which is supposed to be the head of Black Lives Matter, according to their own website, and found a very small disclaimer that indicated that the organization is partnered with another organization, which is really their fiscal agent, called Thousand Currents, which was formerly called IDEX, which stands for the International Development Exchange. Are you following me still? The original organization is called IDEX, International Development Exchange. They're currently called Thousand Currents, and they're the people that take the money for Black Lives Matter. This means, she explains, that I had to dig more, which made me suspect that there are dead cats on the line, since the national mouthpiece for Black Lives Matter movement can't or won't complete the proper documentation to conduct business as a legitimate vehicle and fundraise in a manner that's transparent, like most other organizations. How is anyone supposed to take this charity seriously if they can't organize their social justice vehicle, which allows them to have a seat at the table? Formally Organizing and officially fundraising in your own organization's name also allows others to hold you accountable. If I donate, who do I hold accountable? What am I funding? Who or what am I investing in? Am I supporting the fight for criminal justice, reform, or overly aggressive policing tactics, or globalism, or healthcare, or what? Duke, what do you think about that? 1,000 Currents and IDEX, and
the thing is that you have to do state registrations. That's why she looked in California, because there are charitable solicitation laws in every state. So if you're raising money for an organization that's not registered with most of the times the Attorney General or the Secretary of State, you're violating charitable solicitation acts and things like that. You can get fined. It's not that hard to set up a state nonprofit. In North Dakota, it costs you $40, and you need 3 people, and you fill out one form. You become incorporated as whatever your organization is. Maybe you need to trademark the name. That's another form. You pay another $40 for. Minnesota, it's like $50 or $75 or something like that. So that's the extent of registering in a state. Federally, you have to register. You have to do a form that's it's quite lengthy. It's hard to do. You can hire, if you're bringing in $4 million, you can hire an attorney. Just do their registration for their nonprofit, or you can do it yourself or find someone that can do it. Mm-hmm. It's not that hard to do.
So how come these national organizations with all this power, all these millions of dollars, and they're running candidates, right? They're running people for Congress. They're running people for state legislatures. They're running people for district attorneys. And they can't figure out how to be transparent in their fundraising. And they can't figure out how to file the paperwork so that they're, as this writer says, their vehicle can raise money under their own name. Why are they using 1,000 Currents?
They don't want to be accountable. That's the whole thing. It shows me is that they're not, isn't that they don't know how or any of that stuff. They're just purposely not doing it. And this writer also, what she's talking about is when you make donations, you can check people out. If you can find them, even on Facebook, when you do fundraiser on Facebook, it goes through Network for the Good. And Network for the Good makes you register. Before you can actually get money through one of those fundraisers, you have to give them your registration information. You have to be a 501c3, which is a federally recognized charity. You have to have at least some sort of listing on GuideStar. Mm-hmm. And they point you to GuideStar. Here's this organization's GuideStar. And GuideStar, they farm the information, and you can put more in when you can log in and actually fill it out and flesh it out a lot more. So this organization does not want to be looked into, in my opinion.
And the 1,000 Currents is actually what they call a pass-through organization. Oh. The other thing that is called pass-through that jumps into my mind? The no-tell motels, the pass-through hotels where people go and do secret things. Mm-hmm. Nobody tells anybody what they're doing. It's kind of dirty. I don't know why they would want to do that when they have a national, global network that is getting so much attention in the media right now.
Yeah.
But that's exactly what they are, a pass-through entity for Black Lives Matter. This writer looked into 1,000 Currents, which claims it's an organization focused on social justice, giving, organizational resilience, community self-determination, and global solidarity. Can you see where some of the themes now come from on the Black Lives Matter website?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But the only and most recent tax return for 1,000 Currents goes back to 2016. 2016. So they have no current information. It says in 2017, 1,000 Currents awarded the Black Lives Matter Global Network grant funds totaling a little over $28,000. That was back when they were still in their infancy. Mm-hmm. Furthermore, it says no one can track what Black Lives Matter is actually doing with any funds they receive to further the cause or determine how much is raised by them annually. Needless to say, she said she was just very saddened to find this. When donating to Black Lives Matter, another organization takes the money and funnels it to them. I have no idea how the arrangement works because the Black Lives Matter website doesn't exactly inform us of this partnership. This type of arrangement is nothing new. It is called pass-through entity. The movement started at the same time, and as you'll see, One organization appears to have gotten richer after linking itself to Black Lives Matter, while Black Lives Matter is still AWOL on the scene.
Wow.
Duke, your thoughts?
Oh, my thoughts. It's like, what a mess. What a mess. And I don't know if they're nervous that they're being exposed right now. They should be. They really should be, because if any of the authorities look into this sort of stuff, they're going to be, or you're going to see people that none of them are part of Black Lives Matter. You're going to see people scatter. You're going to see people hide information. You're going to see a lot of things being shredded.
Shredded
Shredded and burned. It's like, that's what I see coming, because this goes so deep, especially when we're not dealing with a couple $1,000s here. We're dealing with millions of dollars, and that makes it a pretty big deal.
Oh, yes. And there's so many things that just stink to high heaven. One of our listeners, Oregon Sunshine, says, for-profit prisons is what drives inequity in Black and brown incarceration rates, but there's crickets from BLM. Yes, Oregon Sunshine, and not just on that topic. As you see, Black community organizations are being trampled, while Black Lives Matter National takes credit for everything, takes all the money, gets all of the promotion, the visits to the White House, and more, while leaving all of the boots on the ground people with nothing. I want to steer you toward the Popular Democracy link. In Popular Democracy, there's an article called Major Donors that are considering fundraising for Black Lives Matter right now, despite the fact that this Black Lives Matter organization has no head, no tail, no middle. It's just a hollow farce. We don't know where the money's going. We don't know who's running it. People are still getting together en masse to give to this organization. One of the main groups doing it is called Democracy Alliance. I am mentioning that to you because I want you to take a closer look. Democracy Alliance is a major liberal donor club which runs from Tuesday evening through Saturday morning and is expected to draw Democratic financial heavyweights, including Tom Steyer and Paul Ergman. I don't know who those people are, but I'm assuming they're deep pockets that the Democracy Alliance would like to tap into. And I would also share with you the entire Twitter thread from Brown Blaze. The account belongs to Ashley Yates that I started this whole show off with at the beginning, so that you can see all of the other links, all of the other arguments that she has been making for years about why Black Lives Matter shouldn't be funded and should be investigated and should be prosecuted. But I also want to point you to look at Democracy Alliance, because I think that there are, when you know that Black Lives Matter is money that you are throwing out the window, flushing down the toilet, because you don't know where it's going, you don't know what it's funding. It's probably paying for some nice cars and some nice vacations. When you look at the connections between past people in leadership that aligned themselves with Black Lives Matter and causes, including leaders at Standing Rock, including people like Sean King, and you look at what's been going on with these riots and these protests today, and you look at what they raised money for and spent money for in the past, there is no sane person, logical person, especially not a funder, that would be looking to raise additional millions of dollars for this money pit. Why would you do that? Why is Democracy Alliance, according to Politico, doing that right now? I think it's a fair question, and I think it merits a look into Democracy Alliance, which I will be bringing you on my upcoming shows here on A Mexican Crossing Lines. Thank you for your support of our work. The best thing that you can do to help us is to share this show. share this information with other people. Tell people to go to our page on YouTube, Duke1517, or follow us on Twitter at media_PPP, or go to 88.1 FM Fargo Moorhead, which is really just KPPP radio. If you want to support getting this message out, please share it on your pages so that more people can learn about what they're funding in the Black Lives Matter movement. Right now, we have an opportunity to educate ourselves and help to educate others so they won't get ripped off and scammed by this group of grifters. Thank you for watching A Mexican Crossing Lines with your host, Cindy Gomez-Schempp.
And Duke Gomez-Schempp.
You've been listening to A Mexican Crossing Lines on 88.1 FM, KPPPLP Fargo Moorhead. Thank you very much, and good night.